On today's episode, we're going to discuss a book review over The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
It's coming up right now.
Yeah. Hey, everybody, this is the Couple on Fire podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Josh.
And I'm the other host, Christy.
And together we are the Couple on Fire podcast. Hey, today we want to do a book review. One of the major things, Christy and I talk about this all the time, one of the major things that's been a real big proponent in us growing is our option to pick up a book, or we actually use Audible, but to listen to books on a very continued basis. So today we want to do an actual book review, something that has moved in a major way, the needle in our lives in a major way for her and I. So today we're going to talk about The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod.
Yeah, so periodically we're going to want to do a book review that's had an impact on both of our lives. Sometimes he reads a book, sometimes I read a book, and we both don't read it.
Yeah.
So we want to do book reviews on ones that we both read.
Yeah, and there's a lot of power in these books that we have read. Christy absolutely loves this book. She's actually listened to it twice. Yeah, she's actually listened to it twice. And there's so much stuff. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm just taking notes on my phone furiously about this book because it's just impacted her so greatly. So we are not going to have time on an episode to go through the whole book. No. But what we want to do is talk about the big parts, the parts that's moved us the most. And then down in the description, there will be a link that you can click on it. We're going to have a challenge at the end of this episode to talk about that. So if these episodes have been something that's been inspiring to you, that's helped you out, please help us grow this channel by reaching more people, by sharing it. If you're not a subscriber, hey, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. You'll get notified each and every week we start a brand new episode. So we're going to kick it off today. There is actually an acronym that Hal talks about inside the book, and what's it called?
Savers.
Savers. So what's the first letter in the letter of Savers is scribe. Why don't you tell them about how important that part is for you? First off, what is it? What is scribe?
Scribe means to journal, basically, and he even talks about in the book about how he's like, hey, don't judge me. I had to think. I wanted to use the acronym Savers, and I had to find a word that meant journal. So he came up with scribe, which means writing. So that was one of the things for me that I really had a huge impact on my life, because journaling is a huge thing. It brings back memories. It helps you to have an attitude of gratitude about the day that you're going into, the day you had previously, and it helps keep your goals at the forefront when you're writing them down.
Yeah, so this has been a real struggle for me personally. I've actually had other gentlemen challenge me inside the Celebrate Recovery group that we're part of. I've had them challenge me. I have put up money. Like, that's a real challenge for me to be good at scribe. But when I did do it, I did find a ton of power in it. So, one of my goals, and Christy and I have talked about this before, and I think it's one of her goals too, is to eventually write a book one day about everything. You know, I believe that, and we've talked about this before, we all die with some type of story inside of us. And when we start to write those down, we actually start to do that, there's so much that gets let off of you. You know, it's kind of like no different than when you first start to pray. It's like having these conversations with God in a powerful way, you know. But scribe is something, for me personally, that's hard for me.
Yeah. Well, and you have a story inside of you, and everybody. So there's someone out there that could benefit from your story. That's why even in Celebrate Recovery, we talk about sharing your testimony, because someone is going to get something out of it, and journaling in Celebrate Recovery as well, because there's so much power in journaling. It's amazing. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where Christy excels, and I do not. And it is something, though, that we have found power in. So it's something that's great. So the next letter is A for affirmations.
Yes. And this is something that I actually struggle with. And I have printed out downloads of free PDFs that you can have that gives you examples of affirmations. But you really there's tons of the motivational speakers that are out there, thought leaders, all those, they swear by doing self-affirmations, because your self-talk is so, so important to your thoughts lead your life. So if you need to look in the mirror at yourself and say, I am punctual, I am honest, I am beautiful, I am worthy. Those things are very, very important. Anything that you want to put in there, you need to tell yourself. That is positive affirmations.
Yeah, I think our minds automatically slip to negative affirmations.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole adage, I'm waiting for the next shoe to fall. I'm always waiting for the next thing to go wrong. And when it does go wrong, you're like, I knew it. And that's so habitual with the way that our minds work that we have to be very intentional. And that's what I like about the Miracle Morning book is it really teaches you to say, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for all of these things. I mean, we got more we're going to talk about, but about all these things, we're going to be more intentional about the way that we do it. And affirmations is a tough one because naturally, who's going to look in the mirror if they already have a poor self-image issues and look at them and tell themselves they're beautiful? It's really hard to do because I think there's a lot of reasons. Number one, you're going to automatically say, I'm just being a liar, and that's not who I am. I'm not a liar, so I'm not going to look in the mirror and lie to myself. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that's not what it's about. It's not about truth or not truth because truth can be a perspective of what we've sold ourselves on over time too. And so self-affirmations, these affirmations, you have to understand the power in them and you have to just do them. So you just talked about this just not even a few minutes ago before we even started this. She's like Zig Ziglar, and she talks about this many different times about how Zig Ziglar says, there's these affirmations and you can put them on your bathroom mirror and you can read through them and you can talk about them. Right?
Yes. And it's in the Bible, that is also you really need to know who you are as a child of God. It's you are loved, and that is powerful. And Satan really does not want us to know how powerful we are, how powerful our thoughts are in our life. And these things, if you do any motivational speaker, thought leader, these things that we're going to talk about that Hal talks about in this book, you will see change in your life if you do these things. You will.
Yeah.
And I mean, I only do 3 or 4 of them. I need to get better at some of the others. And I've seen change in my life. So
yeah, you got to start somewhere. I mean, what does he say? He says in the book something about even if it's 1 minute, because you talked about this earlier. Why don't you share about that?
He takes away the excuses. You don't have an excuse. It is, even if you do each of these things we're going to talk about in the word savers, there's 6. If you do each of them even for 60 seconds, that's only 6 minutes. You always have time to do 6 minutes. That's why he did that, is to take away your excuses of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's affirmations. It's real easy for us to get ahead of ourselves on this because the book is just it just brings up so many great things that if you really put it into action, your life can really change in so many ways. So the third thing is going to be the V, which stands for visualize.
Visualize, yes. And it, again, is another thing that is so, so powerful in your life, and I have yet to do it. I actually talked about some of my accountability partners saying, I'm going to get a visualization board. That's one thing that you could do. I went out and bought the whiteboard to do it, the actual piece of paper. What do you call that?
Poster board. Yeah, it's under our couch.
Yes, I actually went out and bought it. I said, I'm going to do it, and I still have not done it. Yeah. And that is a psychological thing in your brain, your thoughts lead your life. If you have your goals out every single day as something that you see, actually visualize it. Now, in the book, he also talks about you can sit down and actually meditate and visualize you succeeding on what you want to do. That's another form of visualization. But I think a vision board is key, and I have yet to do that as well.
No, I love that you brought that up because that's been a big fail on our behalf. We've
both of us.
Yes, we've talked about it. We went out, she's email me stuff and I'll print it out. Email me stuff and print it out, and I just still don't do it. But I love that you describe both parts of visualization because it's super important. So in high school, which was many years ago, I was part of a cross-country team. And I remember twice a month, our coach would make us stay inside the classroom as we met as a small group of runners. And he would turn all the lights out, and then he would turn on some background music, and he would slowly talk us through a race with our eyes closed. And he would say, visualize yourself catching the person in front of you. Visualize. And there was so much power in that. And at the time, we thought it was so dumb. We thought that was so dumb.
We were high schoolers.
Because we were high schoolers. But I'm going to tell you what, and I don't want to necessarily connect the two 100%, but I think it did have a part of it. We were the only team in our high school ever in history to all go to state that year, girls and guys. And it's because I believe that this coach really understood the underlining things that we don't necessarily think is useful or not. Visualization is huge.
It's belief.
It's belief.
It's when you visualize it, it makes you believe.
Yeah.
And that it's so powerful. If you believe you're successful, you are successful.
Yeah.
It's the Henry Ford quote that says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And that's so powerful. If you think you can't, you're right. If you think you can, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, visualization is something that is so easily overlooked.
Yeah,
it's so easily overlooked. And a big part of it, and we're going to talk about it here in a minute, but it's because a lot of times we don't sit still enough to really think through it. We really don't. And being purposeful with our thoughts. So.
Well, visualizing yourself is so important because how many times do you look at someone that you love, whether a family member or friend, and say, I just wish you could see you the way that I see you. Yeah. And that visualization will help you with your self-talk.
Well, as a guy, and I'm going to be honest, I feel almost stupid doing like a visualization board. I feel stupid about it, and it's because my male ego gets in the way, and I know that. You know, it's okay to think and believe in something that's greater than the way that you believe already, because I'm going to tell you right now, and we can talk a whole other episode on this, is limited beliefs are a real crush to who God's really created us to be.
Yeah.
We really do have a real problem with allowing social media, friends, that this is not intentional stuff, okay? We automatically put ourselves in a box and don't think that we're greater than that or possible to do that. And when we step into visualization, we are intentionally saying, I'm seeing myself in another way that I feel like right now it's not possible for me. And that's hard. For me as a guy, that's really, really hard for me. Mm-hmm. It's really, really hard. So, number 6. Ooh, here it is. E for exercise.
Yes. And exercise is a huge part of it as well. It gets your blood pumping. Your brain is on autopilot when you're going to sleep at night. So exercise in the morning time, like I said earlier, he said he takes the excuses away, even if you do each of these things for 60 seconds. So a lot of people visualize exercise as for weight loss, and that's not the purpose of this. Exercising, even for 60 seconds, it gets your blood flowing. It gets your thoughts moving. It just gives you energy for the day. It really does give you endorphins in your brain, and it sets the tone for your entire day. So in his book, he even gives examples. It's amazing. Like he's like, here's top 10 exercises that you could do in a short little space. He gives an example of where he had to work out when he started. It's like this little circle in his mom's apartment or a bedroom that he lived in with his mom. And it's just really important. I used to get up before we started actually working out on a regular basis. This is one thing I took out of my morning routine because, which I need to put back in. But I used to get up and do like a plank for 60 seconds or do like 50 sit-ups or not 50 push-ups, but I do like 15 push-ups. I'm not good at push-ups. But yeah, it's very, very important to do that.
It is. And I know a lot of times, we've talked about this probably every time we stop and then start working out again, is we're like, my gosh, do I feel so much better. Yes. I feel so much better, not just about myself, but just in general. I feel
draggy.
Yeah, you don't feel draggy and bogged down in like this bloated piece of bread all the time.
Busted can of biscuit.
Like a busted can of biscuit. That's the benefit of working out, okay? You don't have to look like a busted can of biscuit. But, the whole point is that, like you said, it gets your endorphins going, gets your blood pumping, and it's really as the core of who you are as a physical being. I mean, we have to remember that God made us not just a spiritual being, but we're a physical being. And we can't ignore the physical portion of who we are. Yeah. It's all tied together. Mm-hmm. It is. So he does talk about exercise in the morning. I am very poor at that. I'm not going to lie. Okay. Morning exercise is not my friend, but it doesn't mean that I can't take a minute and do it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, because you started doing the plank challenge thing. I know it was something that was going on for a while on like Facebook or something.
Yeah, and that's hard.
It's super hard. Do it for 3 minutes.
No.
Like,
right? I got up to doing it for a little over a minute, but when I first started, even like 15 seconds, you think it's easy. I was like shaking. Yeah. It was so difficult for me to do. So
it is. So it's really good. And there's a lot of these little like 1 minute workouts you can do, these high intensity training, these HITT, I think is what they call trainings, where you can do like fast and slow and really get your blood pumping in a small amount of time. So, I do love about the book, and she shared this already, that you don't have to make time an excuse. I mean, we're real good at making excuses for things we don't want to do. I mean, we can come up with all kinds of wonderful things, the reasons why. And time is almost always the factor.
Well, I wanted to do it for my back because I have a really bad back. Yeah. And so I looked up the exercises that not necessarily for weight loss, but in the morning that I could do to help strengthen my back because my back is so bad.
Yeah, core. That's a good, planking is great for your core. All right, so number 7, the letter R stands for read.
Read. And this is something that is a natural thing in my morning routine. routine. In my personal morning routine, I do the scribe, which is journal. I get up and do prayer, which is the last point that we're going to talk about, which is silence, and then also read my Bible. So that is what I read in the morning, but he puts it in there, not necessarily read your Bible, but to read something because, again, it gets your brain going. It gets it going throughout the day.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff too. Like they say, read in the morning and read at night. Mm-hmm. It's a good way to kind of bookend the day. And journaling too. Journal in the morning, journal at night. I mean, that's why a lot of you can go out and read in probably 500 books right now. Anything to do with self-improvement, and they're going to have a lot of the same similar things.
Yeah.
But what I do. No, because it does work. That's exactly right. But what I do love about his is okay, why not a little bit of everything? Why not a little bit of all this different stuff? You can still fit it all in instead of saying, we're just going to focus on one thing. I'm just going to focus on only reading. And it's a lot of times we think to ourselves, oh my gosh, this book has 400 pages in it, and I don't want to just read 2 pages in the morning. And it's okay, well, you're not going to read the Bible in a week, okay? You have to read it 1 page at a time.
Well, this is why he's so successful at doing this too, because once you start doing these things, you will start getting up earlier to do them more. And that is the whole point. You have to start out little, and then you'll gradually, I get up almost an hour and a half early now to fit some of these things in because it just feels so much better.
Yeah, no, because it makes sense because you start seeing the results of it. And that's the thing, too, the last thing we're going to talk about in here in a second, but the reading thing is not easy for everybody. So me, I don't enjoy reading. I don't enjoy physically reading through stuff. So a lot of the stuff going on with the coronavirus right now and COVID, and there's a lot of stuff on there. So I'm doing a lot more reading than I normally like to do. And I find myself searching for videos instead to substitute it.
It's so weird to me.
I know it's super weird. Okay,
so weird
it is weird.
Because I love to read.
Yeah, and you do. Yeah. But I've had to learn how to say, I'm not going to use my lack of loving to read to stay away from doing these things and consuming. So I remember years ago, this had to be probably 6 or 7 years ago, I told Christy I wanted to get a subscription to Audible, and she was like, we don't have the extra money to do that. And I'm like, it's so important. I really want to do this. I found a couple free books, downloaded them, and I'm like, it's the first book I've ever finished, ever, I think. And I did it in an Audible version, and it was super important. So the reading thing, if you are not a reader, you can still consume material, and Audible has everything on it.
Well, that's why I'm so glad that you brought up Audible, because that takes away your excuse to be what if people say they don't have time to read.
Yeah.
And I put my AirPods in on the way to work, and that's how I consume even more books now.
Yeah.
I consume it when I'm driving to work. I consume it when we're working out. Josh and I talk about this when we're at the gym. People are probably like, I'll just bust out laughing, and people are probably like, what kind of music is she listening to? I'm not. I'm listening to a book. So it's just awesome. Yeah, it takes away the excuse of not having time.
It's your mobile library.
Yes.
I've heard someone call it that before.
It's Zig Ziglar.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's dead, okay? He's gone already, and he still has all this stuff he's been talking about for years. It's just super important. But, don't make an excuse because you don't like to read like me to not consume. That's an amazing thing. Audible is fantastic. It has been a huge resource for us. In Christy's last job, she used to do a ton of driving. And she's like, I don't think I could drive and listen to a book. And then she's like, okay, well, I'm going to try it. And then she tried it, and it took a little getting used to. And then all of a sudden, it's like, can you download this book, Josh? Can you download this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, And so the reading portion is super, super important, but you don't have to finish it all at the same time. Do a little at a time. You used to do it when you would go to work and come home to work. You would 30 minutes at a time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. Mm-hmm. All right, the very last thing of savers in S is silence.
Yes, and silence could be many different things. It could be just sitting and thinking about what your goals are, which also then would kind of go into visualization. But for me, it's prayer. Some people, it's meditation. So if you sit and just actually meditate on, a lot of times I didn't know what meditate meant. So I looked up some of the things, and Brendan Burchard, actually another name drop that we did, says about meditation, he teaches someone about how to do it. I listened to an Audible or something about it. And it's taking just one word and sitting there, and you try to work up to it. Try it for 60 seconds. Try it. And if you find your thought, you have to be very, very self-aware during this time and pay attention to your thoughts to bring you back. But prayer is so important to me because that's what really centers my life.
So a lot of times I hear people say, I have heard people say about meditation in Christianity. They get the things mixed and say, well, you're not supposed to ohm and you're not supposed to do things like that as a Christian. No,
that's not what it's about.
No, it's not about any of that. Silence can be in your own thoughts. Silence can be in prayer. Silence can be in a lot of things. But a big part of the silence, and that's what I love about the book, is it really focuses on the point of just sitting still. I mean, the Bible focused so much on sitting still and just being quiet. Just being quiet. And for a guy like me that is constantly moving,
my gosh, yeah.
I mean, she gets really upset because when we watch movies, I'm just constantly fidgeting. And it's just part of who I am. I get it. So sitting still, I have to be very intentional with. But it's easy for me to make an excuse to say that it's not important. To get away from it, because again, like the reading thing, it's easy for me to say, oh, it's just not who I am. No, it's important, because when I do the silence portion, when I do sit still and talk with God, that is the time that I can talk and listen at the same time. I mean, it's super important, to have that time of silence.
Yeah, the devil wants us busy because the Holy Spirit is a small, still voice, and he wants you to sit down and just be silent. You can really feel his convictions. You can really feel his leading in your life. You just get so much more centered. And he really does give you wisdom that surpasses all understanding when you really just calm yourself and relax. Just relax.
Part of the book, outside of the savers, something that I put down that I wanted to just talk about real quick, it's something that's been very impactful for me, is that he says there's 3 things that you should do first thing in the morning. Number 1, have a glass of water, which Christy does.
Oh, yeah, I drink a huge, almost
It's not even a glass.
ounces.
Yeah, it's like a gallon of
Yeah.
water. Brush your teeth. Okay, Christy will tell you all about that with me. Okay, I can't even think straight until my teeth have been brushed. And then number 3 is I wash my face in cold water. I do it every single morning, and I'm telling you, I've been doing it now for a few years, and it makes a huge difference to me. Whether it's a physical difference or not, doesn't matter. It makes me feel different.
Well, it's amazing though, because Tony Robbins talks about doing it. Mel Robbins talks about doing it. There's something with it. I don't do that, but there is something with that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's science behind it. I could probably dig in a little bit and find out the science behind it. But nonetheless, I don't need the science for it to work.
Yeah.
It just works. And that has been a major part of this book for me personally. That's I found to be a major part of my morning routine. No matter where I'm at, no matter what we're doing, no matter what's going on, I do it every single morning. So it's been a huge part of that. So we want to leave you with a challenge. The challenge, of course, is if you have not heard this book or read this book, down in the description, in the description of this video, we put a link down there, and you can go to Amazon and download it. It's an inexpensive book. Or I'm also going to leave you a link for the Audible version if you want to listen to it. If you don't have an Audible account already, I know you get a free month anyway. And so, you can click on that, get a free month, get a free book and out of the deal and listen to it and see if it's something that's impacted you. But we're going to ask that if you do this, if you download this book, I want you to come back to this video and I want you to go down in the chat.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell us what it is in the book, whether we talked about it or not. What is it in the book that stood out to you? What is it that you found that gave you the hair stand up on the back of your neck, gave you goosebumps, or that you can see, you know what, this is my missing thing. This is something that I need to be part of my morning routine. So
let's recap. So savers is what we talked about. It's SAVERS. So it's scribe, then affirmations, and then visualize, exercise, read, and silence. So it's good to have acronyms because it helps you remember.
It does.
And you don't necessarily have to do them in that order. No. You don't necessarily have to do all of them. It's good to do all of them. I personally need to get better at a couple, like I said, but it is very important to have. Just start.
Yeah, I think I love that you said that because it's easy for us to take something and say, I can't do them all, so I'm not going to do any.
Right.
And it's real easy for us to stay away from things that challenge us, that make us grow. And that's why we love books like this now, is because we know that we don't necessarily have to have perfection. We just need to have progress. So we're going to challenge you. Make sure that you get the book. Check the book out. Leave us a comment. Let us know what value you got from the book. If this episode has been any value to you, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next time.
Bye.